The rivalry and feud between these two old-school London gangsters would end up with one man's death and another man receiving a life sentence. A rivalry made famous now by countless books, movies and documentaries. This is the story of the deadly feud between George Cornell and Ronnie Kray. London just after the war and through the early 50s and 60s would be a golden era for criminals and the underworld. Many famous firms and faces would emerge around this time, none more famous than South London's Richardson gang, run by brothers Charlie and Eddie, and of course East London's most famous firm, the Kray twins, run by twin brothers Ronnie and Reg. George Cornell was born on the 13th of November 1927 in Stepney, London. One of seven, George used to be called George Myers, but changed his name to Cornell for his stepfather, Joseph Cornell, in his early teens. From the age of 12, George often worked as a Billingsgate fish porter and then at the nearby docks where he ran credit rackets. He got his first conviction in 1944 for theft, and in 1950 would receive his first prison sentence. And throughout his life, up until his death, George would have several more prison stretches. George was originally a member of an East End firm called the Watney Streeters, and later became involved and met the Kray twins. However, George would change sides around 1964 and join the South London firm, the Richardsons. And I believe this is what would start the deadly feud with Ronnie Kray. The Krays and the Richardsons were rival firms at the time. Although the Richardsons were far ahead of the twins, they had more money, more resources, and was just more successful, and they didn't see the twins as a threat. Ronnie Kray was born on the 24th of October 1933. Along with his twin brother Reggie, the twins operated in the East End of London from the late 1950s until the end of their run in 1967. The twins were involved in multiple murders, most known are the murders of Jack the Hat McVitie, Mad Frank Mitchell, and of course George Cornell. The twins used to own a nightclub called Esmeralda's Barn in the West End, which brought them into contact with many celebrities and politicians. I believe there are a few reasons why this feud would happen. First reason was when George left the East End firm and joined the rival firm, the Richardsons, and it's no secret George hated Ronnie. He would call him all kinds of names to everyone, especially Ronnie's associates, and I also believe George probably didn't like all the attention the twins would get. Add this to all the tensions building between the two firms and it would not be too long before things would boil over. It's no secret that Ronnie was psychotic and also a very good fighter. Although a lot of people may not know, George Cornell was a very tough individual. Apparently George had never lost a fight on the cobbles, and most people would not cross George. The two men had a few clashes, with George coming out on top most of the time. The most famous incident would be a fist fight outside the Brown Bear pub in Whitechapel, where it said George Cornell would knock Ronnie Kray out unconscious. This would be a terrible loss of face for Ronnie, and Cornell would also belittle and take the piss out of the twins at every chance he would get, leading to the dramatic events which would follow. On the 9th of March 1966, Cornell and his friend Albie Woods entered the Blind Beggar pub and ordered 2 light ales. Around the same time, about 8:30 in the evening, Ronnie Kray and associate Ian Barry would enter the pub. Barry would then fire 2 shots into the ceiling, while Ronnie Kray slowly walked towards Cornell. George was meant to have said to Ronnie, "Well, just look who's here," at which point Ronnie took out his 9mm Luger and calmly shot George 1 time in the forehead above his right eye. George Cornell would later die in hospital in the early hours of the morning, aged 38, putting an end to this deadly feud. And on the 4th of March in 1969, Ronnie Kray would be found guilty of the murder of George Cornell and sentenced to life imprisonment. Ronnie Kray would die on the 17th of March 1995 at the age of 61 at Wrexham Park Hospital, Berkshire. This has been the story of a deadly feud, a tale about two of London's most notorious faces. If you like the content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.